Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
And that Iowa-ass Bama team.
That's just a cold open. That Iowa-ass Bama team.
So good.
And that's what they are. Chris Marler of Saturday Down South, of Saturday Football Uncensored, everything Texas Pete all the time. You've got the overalls on here, Chris. You've got the board behind you. You got the corgi. You drinking a Celsius or a White Claw right now?
Celsius. It's been a long day.
Does caffeine not affect you?
No. I was prescribed Adderall for a very long time. I still am. I just don't take it anymore. Because I'm 37 and I feel like it's just like at some point you can't be taking all that shit. Excuse my language. I don't know if we're allowed to cuss. My bad.
You're okay.
But yeah, so I stopped taking it. But like, you know, if you've been like prescribed that since like college, I probably shouldn't even be talking about this. I don't know. But yeah, no, I just like finally had to stop because I was like, it's just I don't like it. It's like it makes me like less of who I am. So I just drink more caffeine now. So
okay, but it doesn't affect you. Like it doesn't keep you up all night.
No, not at all.
I never got in the Celsius game. I see more and more people. The first person who, funny enough, who had Celsius, where I was like, what is that? It was Tom Crean when I had him on last year. Tom Crean was just pounded Celsius, and I think he had 2 in the interview. It was just one of those.
I've cut it back, but I was like at one point this summer, I was crushing like 4 or 5 a day, and I was like, you gotta tone it down. You gotta tone it down. You gotta live.
Do you do coffee too?
No. This is like in place of coffee. Also, if I drink a coffee, I'll cut these out.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can cut out coffee. There's just no way.
I mean, I love coffee, but at the same time, it's like I'll just start my day with this. It's also I'm like big into coffee when it's like cold, and now it's like starting to cool down a little bit. So I get on the porch and drink some coffee. But in the summer when it's like 1,000 degrees, I don't.
No. I don't know what kind of coffee drinker you would be. Like I could see very sugar cream guy. I could also see black. I don't know. I don't know.
My go-to coffee order usually is a medium non-fat latte with 3 to 4 extra shots. So,
oh my God,
I know.
You know, there's already shots in the latte. Like it's already
2
espresso in there. Yeah.
So,
how many? I'm trying to do the math here. You've got like the Dan Campbell order here.
Yeah. So it's like 4 shots of of espresso.
Yeah.
But it's diluted a little bit because of the milk. So
this is why you were so into Bama this summer, is you took one of those before the pod and you were just seeing rainbows and you're just like, actually things are good. You were just all vibes, no breaks.
So much of that. It seems like you were more right than I was so far. We'll see though. We'll see. This week is gonna be tough. I
mean, this week is that's the leading thing that I'm curious about, because Tennessee, I don't know if you've heard about this, Tennessee Volunteers, pretty familiar with them, waxed. They won the Super Bowl this weekend, so that was cool. Have not gotten to see that at this point in my sports fandom, so that was cool. Enjoyed that. But in terms of like Texas A&M and Alabama, that's who we've got in the docket the next 2 weeks. So after this bye week, you get A&M at home, and then you go to Bama. I mean, we're just in the meat of the calendar, and that just is really going to dictate where Tennessee's going the rest of the way. And I don't know, what would you suggest if you're a Tennessee fan right now, Marler? And I know you've thought about it a lot of like, what if I was a Tennessee fan? I know that's something that you've had an inner monologue a lot in your life.
You got the overalls.
Hey, we like the checkerboard overalls. Yeah. Like it's a different kind of deal here, but it just means more. I don't know which way to go, because I'm going to be locked in watching it. I don't know if I want A&M to beat Alabama again for the second time in a row at College Station, or I want Bama to look great, to crush A&M, and then A&M comes in limping following that kind of shellacking. Because I don't think it goes any other way. Either Texas A&M wins a squeaker, or Bama really rolls A&M. I think those are the only 2 options. Do you agree?
No, I don't agree. I think there's a different route that I'm leaning towards. But if you're a Tennessee fan, what I think you always want Bama to lose if you're a Tennessee fan. And I think the thing is with this Bama team, we haven't seen Bama lose 2 games this early in the season. We haven't seen them lose 2 games before November since 2007. So you're in uncharted waters. You have a new quarterback. You have a team that, like, we don't know what this team is made of for Bama. And I think the defense is really, really good. But I think you're also going to start seeing if they lose another game, like, I don't know if they have the same pride as last year's team did, where it was like, well, we lost 2 games, but we want to finish out the season. We're going to play in the Sugar Bowl, that type of thing. Like, where they the stars are going to play in the Sugar Bowl. I don't know if that team has this. I don't know any of that. And so I think if you're Bama or if you're a Tennessee fan, you want Bama to lose always, but especially now because they might have the tendency to roll over and die. And I've said this since the beginning of the season. I think that if they lose one, I can see them finishing the season without another loss. But if they lose 2, I think they lose 4.
I mean, that's some Iowa ass Alabama right there. If you lose 2, you lose 4.
Don't start with me.
I mean, if you lose to A&M, Tennessee's absolutely walking in Tuscaloosa and beating Alabama. That's absolutely happening.
I don't know about that. I don't think you guys have the offense right now.
I don't know what are you missing here? What do
you we're not South Carolina for
Hold on, what was your favorite downfield throw from the South Carolina game, Marler?
I don't know if I watched.
We had one. I'll give you a hint. We had one. It was one total, and Squirrel didn't even see it.
Is this when he caught at his feet?
Yes.
That was
he never saw it, which also was apparently not defensive pass interference somehow. Like some of the still images are just, and I'm over in the end zone at that point. We're all just like apoplectic, and then we all realize that he caught it anyway. So you're just like, oh, okay. Now I'm going to use all this anger into celebration, and God, just being.
I hate that you guys didn't get a call go your way in that end zone, especially in that stadium. I know that's tough,
right?
I know it's really tough for you guys to not get pass interference calls like that because it could really change the outcome of a game.
Well, it's actually better when they're late. Like, I prefer them more when it's like I really enjoy it more when it feels like the game's over and it feels like that was the.
I don't know, say the guy who intercepts a pass is at the 40-yard line when it's done.
Right.
Like that kind of stuff is crazy,
Because then it just shows that like they really care. Yeah. The officials really want to get it right.
That's good. No, I think so. What's crazy about that is like, and I make no bones about it. Like, I'm not a huge Tennessee guy because I think Tennessee fans have been largely rude to me always on social media, and that's whatever. Like, outside of you, like, I have to remind myself that you're a Tennessee fan, not even Michael Bratton, who like I've worked with and known forever. But like, I'm like, okay, not all Tennessee fans are bad, but a lot of them are like, they wear like a badge of honor, that's whatever. But I gotta say, man, this weekend, and I live in Columbia, South Carolina, but the atmosphere in Neyland looked awesome. I mean, just awesome. And so it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool to watch. The squirrel white catch, my only thought on that, and this is going to make me sound old, but I'm not even making a joke, and I think there's probably some people, your listeners maybe, that are around my age that thought the same thing. When I saw the replay of that, I was like, his back has to hurt so bad. I can't imagine having to bend over like that. It was really impressive, man. It was a really impressive win from start to finish. But I kind of felt like that's one that, if there was one game I knew they were going to win all season, it was going to be that one, though.
Oh, no, it's Kentucky. Like, Vanderbilt and Kentucky are the two that, like, before the year, death taxes, Josh Heupel beating a Stoops. Like, there's going to be Tennessee fans or Kentucky fans that always talk themselves into, I don't know, you got to go to Kroger Field. You know where there's not going to be an issue for Tennessee with loud noises and snap count issues and being able to play with tempo on the road in the SEC? Kroger Field is one of those where that's not going to be an issue. Like, Tennessee struggles on the road at Georgia. They struggle up the road at Alabama, Florida, where it gets loud. That's an issue. Yeah. Like, that was one of the biggest reasons they lost at Florida was Cooper Mays was out and Ollie Lane, but left guard thrust into that role late.
Huge.
And it's just hard to get in your checks and changing plays of the line. It's just loud and inexperienced 5-man unit, and it got away from him for a multitude of reasons. But one of them is just crowd noise. This offense, I think, struggles with crowd noise. It just messes with the tempo, messes with the whole offense. But that's not going to be an issue.
I mean, it's also, they're a long way from being a finished product. Like a lot of teams are.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I think they're pretty finished. As someone who's watched every single snap and has gone back and watched it, I was in the building on Saturday. Like, it's funny. Everybody likes Joe. Like, we all like Joe personally. He stayed. He's the guy who stayed. That's all nice. But he is what he is. And my father-in-law, he made a comment after the game, and he was like, you just got to give him, he's getting better as the season goes on. You just got to give him time. I'm like, the thing is, it's like, he's not a sophomore. He's not 19. Yeah. He's 24. Like, no, this is it. Like, this is Joe Milton. Like, it's right. We're not seeing a different version down the stretch here. We're not going to see the unlocked new age, just Hendon Hooker type. Like, I mean, just it's not going to happen. Like, he's not going to suddenly start running the football a bunch. He's not going to suddenly start being super accurate in the intermediate. He's not. None of that's happening. So I think this offense is actually pretty done. They know that it's Jalen Wright and Dylan Sampson and Jabari Small, that they're going to run the ball down your throat and then hope they do enough in that regard that they can set it up and take a couple deep shots a game. But I think they are a finished product in offense. I think this is the most handicapped a Josh Heupel coach team has been since he's been a head coach. I don't think if you go back through just over the course of Josh Heupel coach teams, I've never seen one this handicapped, especially vertically. There is no verticality to this game, and I just don't see that coming. I think they have their identity. They're going to win at least 8 or 9 games playing that way. Yeah. It's just not going to be fun. Like, it's not pleasant to watch when it's not really working.
I'd say I don't get it with the offense is like, we've heard all offseason that Milton can throw it 1,000 yards, right? He can throw it as far as anywhere, like farther than anyone else in the country.
Hold on. You say 1,000? Like Milton has a good arm? Hold on. Let me write that down.
But I mean, like, the thing is, they don't do that with him. They only throw like these like really short, like behind the line of scrimmage, like screen passes. And like, they're still doing like the whole thing with the splits where they're like way out, like near like the sideline. And I get that still makes sense because then it forces you to have like a light box, like for like the defense when you're trying to stop the run, which they run the ball, first. But I'm shocked that they don't try to throw it deep more because you still have a lot of speed at that receiving position. And I will say that, like, I don't even want to get into this because I don't know if it's like a big enough deal, but like the Nico chants or Nico murmurs, like, is that even a thing? Is that even no, not at all.
It's just easy to chant. And it's also like Nico's just like, that's just one of those where I said before the year, I'm like, part of the problem here is that Nico is so easy. Nico.
True.
Like, it's easy. It's an easy one to chant. You know what was hard? Harrison Bailey. It's a tough one to chant.
Oh, yeah. I missed the Harrison Bailey days, though.
Oh, I was in the building when Joe Milton was airmailing bombs to insert player name here, Javonte Payton, in the Pitt game where they lost at home and just fans were losing their mind. And that's the other thing. Joe's a lot better than what he was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just he's a C-. Like, he's not – there's no A- coming. There's no A coming. Hendon Hooker was an A-. Nico has the potential of being an A+. Like, Nico has the A+. Because, like – I love Hendon. Hendon was great for a multitude of reasons, but there was still a ceiling on what he could ultimately be. And you saw that in the Georgia game where it's just the playing outside of structure. It's one of the hardest things for an elite quarterback. You saw it the last 2 years of Bryce and how much you can take that for granted of guys who just the ball can bounce, go over their head. They just pick it up and then find a 5-yard completion. And you're just like, I have no idea how he didn't just give up a sack there. Like, that was Bryce Young. And there are only a handful of those guys. Milton's just an all-time game manager, and I think that's just going to be what he is. I mean, Devin Leary is a game manager. I mean, Jalen Milroe. That's what Bama wants to do. Is they want a game manager there. They don't want Jalen Milroe throwing picks in the end zone. They don't, right? Like, are you comfortable with Jalen Milroe and what this identity is for Alabama now, or do you still have some questions that they haven't figured it out and that people might be overreacting to blowing out Mississippi State?
Oh, people are definitely reacting to that. Because here's the thing. You look up at the end of that game, and they gained 357 yards of offense. It's the 4th straight game. Hold on, the dog's about to start barking. Pepper says hello. Great.
Hey, Pepper.
So they had 4 straight games with under 400 yards of offense, which is the only time that's happened in a regular season. Like, it's happened one other time in a regular season since 2010, and that happened in 2015. But, like, that – you don't have what you had in 2015. You don't have a run game and an offensive line that you can just get behind. That offensive line is not good. Like, it's like they continue to give up sacks. I think some of those fall on Milroe. And Milroe is a much better passer than people give him credit for, but he also is like, I still don't feel like until the Mississippi State game, he was put into a position to really do all the things he's good at. They had a few design runs. The first touchdown was not a design run, but like they had a few design runs, and he has looked better in the passing game, even in the intermediate passing game, which has been like something he's been critiqued for. He was 4 of 4. I mean, he was 10 of 12 in that game for however, I think it's like 159 yards. But I think that's like, you're not going to beat A&M by throwing the ball 12 times. You're not, I mean, you're going to have to throw the ball at least 20 times. And he's going to have, I would say, 35 plays, like whether it's a combination or 30 of like designed runs, and then passing I think he's got to have at least 30. I don't want to say touches because he's the quarterback. Obviously, he touches the ball every time. But, like, you're not going to be able to run the football. And that's what Alabama tried to do this weekend against Mississippi State was we're going to line up. We need to get the offensive line going, get the run game going. And they were able to do that somewhat effectively, right? Like, they were averaging, like, 4.5 yards a carry. But, like, you're 11th or 12th in the SEC in yards per game. And that might not be a stat that, like, is important to a lot of people. And, you know, they still put up 40 points, and that's what wins you games. It's not total yards. But that's a concern. Like I'm tired of Bama fans being like, oh, well, you know, they put up 40. That's all that matters. Like, no, it's not. Because, like, you're playing Mississippi State. You should beat Mississippi State. To be honest, you should beat Mississippi State by 23 points every year, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have, like, the concern comes with, like, okay, you beat USF 17-3, then you beat Ole Miss 24-10. And I think it's really impressive that when you look at what Ole Miss did against LSU and put up, like, 55 points compared to 10, but, like, damn, LSU put up 49 and you were only able to put up 24, and it was a struggle for a lot of it until the second half. There's a lot of concern there. And now they got to go on the road where they've been poorly coached. They've made a lot of dumb mistakes. And I think the numbers on it's like, you look at last year on the road versus like home, they gave up an average of 178 yards more per game on the road. They had 4 more penalties per game for an average of 28 yards more for penalties per game on the road. And they've done that now for, like, you look at some of these numbers, like from like being on the road and, like, in tough SEC games. There was a while there in 2019 at the end of the Auburn game, 2021, 2022, where you're not only, like, committing a bunch of penalties, you're setting records, like 13 for 130, I think, against, like, Florida, or like 11 for 130. And then you go to Texas, you hit 15, it's the most under Saban ever. And then you top that, like, a few weeks later in Knoxville. It's like, now they got to go to Kyle Field, which is, I don't know if it's even more difficult to play in, but it's still going to be a really tough place.
What's your favorite Texas A&M fan tradition?
Just, like, it is the weirdest group. I think my favorite thing is the awful guilt that I feel every time I make fun of them. And then I see an A&M fan who hears it, and I'm like, oh, I got him good. And he's like, hey, man, really funny stuff. Really nice to meet you. Like, it's like if the Wiggles came to life and all went to a college football game. Like, they're the nicest people. You want to make fun of them behind their back, and then you can do it to their face too. But they're just like, there's a part of A&M. Now, don't get me wrong, like the milkman costumes and the finger waving and, like, the 85,000 bros putting arm in arm singing campfire songs, swaying back and forth is weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do respect the fact that, like, you see people like at Auburn, you see people like at A&M, where it's like, hey, everyone knows that we all know that everyone thinks we're weird. We don't care. This is who we are. And I respect that a little bit.
Okay. What's your gut telling you on how this weekend goes?
So I think Bama loses. I think,
wow.
I know. Well, listen, like, I'm a Bama fan, and I try to be like I make no bones about that, right? Like I'm very honest about that. But I also think the fact that, like, I try to be as logical and reasonable as possible about what I see. And I think when you look at this game, the things that worry me are this. A&M's the only team in the SEC, and I believe in the country, that has scored on their first 2 possessions in every single game they've played so far this season. Bama is not a team that's built to come from behind, I think, with this offense. So I think if they get down early, especially on the road, I don't think they're built to come from behind. The other part of it is the fact that everyone knows the A&M recruiting classes, right? But, like, the type of talent they've been able to amass on the defensive line is better than anyone else in the country. Better than Georgia, better than anyone else. I'm not saying developed. I'm saying recruiting-wise, the best defensive linemen, like, they can go 9, 10, 11 deep on the defensive line without, like, batting an eye. And they're really, really good. They're really physical. And this Bama offensive line is not a good offensive line. They've given up the second most sacks of any team in the SEC. They've given up 20 sacks, and they're only ahead of South Carolina, who's given up 23. Then you look at a team like A&M, who's coming off of back-to-back 7-sack games, where they also had 15 tackles for loss in both those games. Like, and what has Bama struggled with the most on offense? It's not the turnovers from Jalen Milroe. It's people constantly being in the backfield. And I remember when they played against Texas, they gave up 5 sacks, and that's a concern always. But then they went to USF and they gave up 5 more sacks. I remember they said, they were like, on, like, the next week's broadcast, they're like, this is the only time since, like, 2007 or maybe ever, Bama's offensive line has given up back-to-back games with 5 or more sacks.
Mm.
And then they follow that up by giving up 4 apiece in the next 2. So not really marked improvement there. So I think that when they go to College Station and all the stuff I just talked about with like the trends that you've seen that have really become a pattern where they go on the road and they make a lot of pre-snap penalties. This is not an offense that is built to be in 2nd and long and like 3rd and long. And they've done somewhat well against like some inferior teams with that. But like one thing about Tommy Rees's offense that drives me crazy is not like the lack of conversions on 3rd down, because it's not that bad. It's the amount of 3rd downs they get into. And like before that Ole Miss game, you're talking about a team that was last in the SEC and even getting to the red zone. And so I don't know how this all plays out. I think the keys to Bama winning are you got to be +2 in the turnover margin at least. The special teams, which has been like knock on wood, like really good. They've made like the last 24 field goals. They've been really good on the punting and all that kind of stuff and pinning people deep. You got to have to do all that and then like play perfect, because I mean, they've gotten just destroyed by Anaya Smith like the last 2 years. He's had 4 touchdowns in the last 2 years combined. Evan Stewart has been a nightmare for them last year. So I just don't see how Bama keeps up. I think A&M wins by a touchdown.
We're in a totally different world if they go down, because I think that happens. You're losing LSU, and I think you're also losing to Tennessee.
Well, okay, we'll see.
8-4, like I don't know. Does Saban come back after 8-4?
I don't know how he goes away at this point. I don't think he leaves it after 8-4. I think he's probably pretty upset.
Yeah. Does Tommy Rees make it through? Does he do a one and done?
God, Tommy Rees has been so bad. I spent $57 on Reese Nuts shirts that I made off of Etsy. It was a bad idea. No,
Murder Ball feel like forever ago? How long ago does Murder Ball feel like?
Like from the summer or like back in the day?
No, this summer. Like how long ago does that optimism? We have smart national pundits like Bama's winning the title. Bama's just going to run over everybody. Well, now we're like, they're actually going to have 2 losses before November.
I think that is going to happen on Saturday. Yeah. But I also thought they were going to lose to Texas by I said 10 plus points all summer, and they lost by 10 points exactly. And so I think that's what's going to happen with A&M. But also here's the other thing too, is like Bama's
it's a bad recruiting double digit. That's a bad recruiting moment too. Like you losing to A&M and Texas in the same year.
Yeah. I mean, you also have 15 years of. I think that you're more excited. I think that, like a lot of fans. I'm not saying you're a fan, but I think there's a lot of people who are so excited and ready for everything to be over that they're like kind of talking themselves into it way faster than it probably is happening. In the same way that pundits are like, Saban smiled, game over for everybody. I think that I think both those things could probably be true at the same time.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's the thing. Like what is your response going to be if Bama comes out and wins? What if they win convincingly?
That's what they're supposed to do. It's like, that's what the money's for. Is like, that's what I'm yelling at. It's like, Bama, you don't get props for beating A&M with their backup quarterback. Like, that's not how this works. Like, that's what you should be doing. Like, people forget, like, there's this thing, the blue chip ratio and the team blue chip composite rankings, and they are the all-time most talented team we've ever seen in college football.
Like, this year?
Yes, they have the most amount. Like their amount of 4 and 5 stars is the most that we've ever seen. The most that are.
See, but here's the thing too, and like that's all fine, because I think that you can point to the lack of development in some spots and all that kind of stuff, like whatever. But also, like, this is not me making excuses. This is something I feel like that's like very valid. Is like
it's 94.49%, by the way, is their average.
Okay, so like some of these people or some of these like recruits that were 4 and 5 stars, especially in the COVID years, which is like we're talking about junior and seniors, it's so far off. And some of the people that weren't recruited, because I mean, you and I went to the same high school, just very many different years apart. And like you talk about like how important it is for high school seniors to have high school senior tape, right? Like your senior year, and everything is moved up so much quicker now because you have the early signing day and you have like when you're allowed to take your visits and all that kind of stuff. I just feel like there's a number of reasons why the Bama dynasty is starting to decline. I don't hold on to like the roster composite thing cracks me up, because like you'll hear fans all the time being like, oh, they're getting a Bama bias and they were a 3-star, now they're a 4, like, or this team that, you know, we will actually develop our talent. Like this guy's a sleeper. Like all of those numbers are based off of like white dudes named William that are watching tape thousands of hours a week of kids that like grainy ass high school footage and being like 4-star. Like, there's so much that goes into it. People complain about recruiting services and then they want to hang on to this when it's like, well, Bama's not good. You know how embarrassing it is? They have the best recruits of all time, but it's like, I hear the same anti that argument. I'm not explaining this well, but I believe it in my bones.
I can't stand it. Bama fans just being like, actually, it's a mirage. Like, actually, this talent's a mirage. Survey says denied. Chris Marler. Can't accept it from a Bama fan. Just can't do it. Is it true you were always a Tim Gustafson guy over Jeff Francoeur?
When did I never, listen, I'm not doing this to you right now. In what sport?
I mean, any.
No.
Remember how big of a deal it was that he took 12? And I remember I asked my grandpa, I was like, why is he allowed to have 12? Like, I was like, why is he getting 12?
Was he? I thought he was 7. Was he 12 his senior year?
Remember, it became a whole thing. It was like a passing of the elite number. But yeah, Gustafson was 12.
Who was 12 my year? 04. They probably just stopped.
Are you sure it wasn't Gustafson?
Gustafson was a year older than me, so that was 03.
Okay.
I will say that, like, because he was still number 7, or he was like, he might have been like 23 or something in baseball. I think he was number 7, but like, very, very good pitcher. Yeah. Very, very good pitcher. He was a limited athlete. I think he ran like a 7.160. Jeff was like a 6'5" guy, 6'6".
Tim Gustafson, man, what is he up to?
He made the AAA. Tim and I were good buddies because obviously we were closer than me and Jeff, obviously, because Jeff was 2 years older than me and I wasn't like on those teams. Like I was, but Tim and I were close, and he was a really good dude. And like a lot of those guys from that team were like, I think we were kind of limited in some capacities. We didn't have Jeff, right? Like that was a tough. That junior year we were like 24-1, and we got bounced in the first round of the playoffs. And it was awful.
Man,
I know.
And now they're just like the best program in the country, year in, year out.
Dude, like
an absolute powerhouse.
Like Jeff Francoeur was like so like my freshman year was 2001, and we won state in 2001, 2002. And every single starter from that 2002 team played college baseball at some level, right? 2003, 8 of the 9 guys that we had played college baseball. The only one that didn't was our center fielder, Joey Sturdivant, who played 4 years as a starter at SMU at safety, and is now the head football coach at Parkview.
Good dude. I like Joey.
I love Joey. He's
he's Joe now?
Is he?
He's Joe.
I reached out to him before his first game, and I was like, hey man, like, just like, I think he like hit me up on Twitter or something. And I was like, proud of you. This is gonna be awesome. Like, whatever rah stuff, to say. And he was like, hey man, I've been watching your comedy on YouTube for years. And I was like, gross. That's terrible. That's terrible stuff. But yeah, he's great, man. That team was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I don't know why we're talking about it. It's 20 years ago.
Why not? Parkview.
20 years ago. Think about that.
Y'all would not believe how much Marler talks. Like, he'll hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, like, dude. He'll be like, dude, back in my day, like back in 03.
Somebody's gonna believe this and then repeat it.
Like, the green flag meant something when I went to school.
What is the green flag?
Remember the battle for Lilburn? Like,
No.
Whoever beat Berkmar. It was the Berkmar Parkview game was the battle for the green flag.
For football?
Yeah.
So this is one thing too, is I wasn't really my whole goal when I was like in high school was to play college baseball. So I didn't really get into the whole Parkview pride thing. And I like until afterwards I left and I realized how big of a deal it was. But I remember that I remember getting interviewed and I got in trouble for this my senior year because they were like asking me about Coach Buck, who was in his last year. It was his 30th year that he was retiring. And he made this comment about how they were like, how big of an honor is it for you? This has to be like the biggest honor in your baseball career. And I was like, no, I got like this team I was on and this team. And I was like, but he's been great. Like, but this isn't the end goal for me. Like, I want to play in college. And they were like, why would you say that? And I was like, I was just being honest. And they were like, not okay.
Yeah, that was a softball. Marler, that was
it was. In hindsight, it was like, hey, man, you really like our coach? And I was like, let me tell you about something else.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to do anything but.
It's terrible.
It was a good, like, precursor for your college football media career. It's like you think it's going one way, and then you're like, nope. Ask Marler a question, you don't know where it's going. Like the answer is going to be completely different than what we.
To choose your own adventure, but it's really me choosing.
Yeah, there you go. It's like watching a Shiloh football game, and it's like choose your.
There it is.
It's probably not going to go well. You just don't know where it's going. You just know it's not going to go well. Chris Marler, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Saturday Down South and Saturday Football Uncensored this week?
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Sorry I hijacked most of the questions into nothingness, but
no, this is good.
Yeah,
man.
Saturday Football Uncensored, the podcast. We got a new episode comes out every Sunday and Wednesday night. And then we have all of our stuff on YouTube, Saturday Down South. I don't write for the website, SaturdayDownSouth.com, so check that out or don't. I don't really care. But Saturday Football Uncensored is a podcast. Vern Funquist on Twitter and Instagram, and Coach Buck was mid. I'll say it.
Wow.
I don't mean that. He was a great man. He was a great man. He helped me out a lot.
Wow.
It was a joke. It's a callback.
I mean, I got the callback. You didn't have to explain the callback to me, Marler. I was like, you're just going back. I was like, all right, if you want to go there.
Coach Buck's
I mean,
great.
you're just, yeah. Anyway, go Parkview. Hail Parkview forever. That I don't know. I'm just rambling now. Sean Dawkins was really good. Chris Marler, always a pleasure. I'll talk to you again soon.
See you, dude.